Welcome to episode 15 of Secrets of the Universe, Walking the Conscious Path with Steve Hasenberg. This episode is titled To All My Relations, and we have Kristan Sargeant, who is a development coach and consultant who helps women find their own value. So Steve, before we started shooting this, you said this episode more than anything else is about heart. So I'll pass it to you.
I love heart, Greg. I love what the heart is capable of. And the heart has to be freed in this culture from the mind. The idea of all my relations is a statement of heart, because it's a statement from the Lakota and the Sioux that speaks to the interconnectedness that we all have. When we fail to have interconnectedness, I believe we lose our heart. And when they talk about this, and it's in all of their prayers, they say they end the sweat lodge to all my relations. They end the vision quest to all my relations. They end the prayers to all my relations. And they say that because they lived in a different time, but they lived in a human body. The reason I gravitate toward that is because we have the same capacity to feel what it's like that they felt. What they felt is they had a relationship with the earth, with the stars, with the animals. They had a relationship with the rocks, even inanimate objects, because they felt that everything that was here on their sacred drama, on their sacred journey, was holy. And when you come from that place of holiness, your heart is wide. You're able to love. You're able to behave in ways that honor people, that creates extraordinary generosity. I know in the Navajo, they have a day called the giveaway. It's called Navajo Giveaway, and it's very old. One day a year, people would open their tents, their teepees, their homes, and everybody from the community would come, and they would take whatever they wanted. And you would feel honored that they took something of yours. That's what I'm talking about in terms of the interconnection. So we want to talk about, well, we have a beautiful heart together, beautiful interconnection. And I wanted maybe Kristan to talk about interconnectivity with women.
I mean, I'm going to say something else.
Okay.
No, because what you just said, and then I'll go to women if you want me to.
That's what it's about.
We've really lost that sense of interconnection. It's a concept that we have, but we don't have the felt experience in this time in history of actually being connected. But can you imagine? Like, take a minute to imagine. That was really, if you go back, I wrote a thesis about this back in the day when I was getting my master's. It was related to, birthing in the moonlight. It was about actually the giving birth process, but a lot of it was about ego development and human consciousness, the beginning, the advent of us understanding that we played a role in creating the universe, agency. We didn't know that. There was a period of time when we actually experienced ourselves as inscribed in this larger story, not just these little individual stories, and I'm walking over here and you're parallel, but we have nothing, we're not invested in each other, we don't owe each other anything, we have no sense of responsibility or felt connection. But there was a time before that. I mean, what's exciting about ego development is then we got tools and we realized we're creators. We can come up with all this incredible stuff. It was in the beginning of industry. But before that was, a different time. And some people call it the feminine, stage of history, where the moon was the primary symbol instead of the sun.
Right.
And so if you can imagine how good that would feel like trust. A story, because you started with Native Americans, is I've been reading a book and there was a beautiful story about how pecan trees have this interconnected root system, subterranean, and there's a fungus that is their mode of communication that actually tells them when to flower. And sometimes based on where a specific tree is, it gets more water, it gets more sun, it has more resources, which is true to us, right? Some people are born into lives with more resources. Some pecan trees get nothing, but the ones that have all the resources know to wait. They all flower at the same time. They don't bear fruit until this time that is determined, and they ultimately do that for the long-term survival of the species.
Brings me to something so cool.
Do it.
So in the Native American tradition, also indigenous traditions, ancestors are so important. I never really understood all of it. Recently it's come to me. I think I woke up one night at 3 o'clock going, I understand the ancestry. And the idea was that the ancestors wanted to speak with them. The ancestors had gone through the human drama, and because they were open, the tribes were open-hearted, and they were in touch with their psychic ability. The ancestors knew what life was, and when they were freed from their egos and their worries and their fears and their survivals, they could talk to the tribes about what they learned. And so when they talk about the wisdom, it reminds me of the pecan tree, because the interconnectedness is part of the overall teaching, is part of the overall survival. Things are passed down in the animal realm, they're passed down in the mineral realm, and they're passed down in the human realm. So that reminded me of your story.
I love that, and that's a bank account that we have to tap into that we've just lost a lot of touch and relationship with, but that's an inheritance of ours that is real, and an equal reality alongside the kind of individualistic culture that we've co-created is this other experience where we're actually connected and invested in each other, and you could feel, what would that feel like? I just keep going back to that. I think that's what you've wanted to bring to light, is that that's a real, if we could open our imagination and minds to that,
I was telling,
feel better.
Go
Go.
It's how we have our,
It's wonderful.
this is how we can get together over at Starbucks. So it's very, very broad. So what I'm remembering is that, and I spoke about this at another video, after my illness, and my illness was a calling, if we go back to the last video, I was called to face something that I would never imagine I'd have to face. And that, if the viewers haven't seen it, had to do with losing my mind, not being able to speak, having a hard time walking, not being able to do my practice. But what came out of that were ongoing spiritual experiences that speak to what we're talking about right now, where I'd be walking down by the beach and I would feel the sun penetrating me so deeply that it would become a friend of mine, that the sun started to talk to me, that the sun was talking to me in a way that it was your deepest, dearest friend, in the sense that it was warming me, that it was providing photons, that it was giving my body breath and animation. And those experiences, whether it's the wind or the photons or falling in love with people, I mentioned this in a different video, but I fell in love with old flower woman at Gelson's. It wasn't romantic, but my heart burst. And so I wanted to bring that in right now, because I am not special. I am just somebody, just like the Native Americans, just like anybody who's been able to be on a mountaintop and feel the breath of God. We have this capacity inside of us that is connected. So when we go from the ego and the busyness of the mind to the stillness, it comes out of stillness. And the more still we become, the more the interconnectedness is automatic. Have you felt that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that experience, if we could know that, if we could trust that, I think that, we've become disconnected, as we all know, in such a way that makes us feel, it creates the scarcity that there aren't enough resources.
That's
And
so good.
knowing that if we could feel into this, which is our real nature, that there's
Right.
this connection, we wouldn't have to compete and struggle so much. We've created a storyline as human beings where we've pitted ourselves against each other, but it's not the only truth, and it's actually not the real truth.
That's
And we're
it.
all interconnected. And when you open to that, which I think is challenging in the world we've created, to have any reference point for that actually I could open my doors, the gift economy, and people could come and take from me, and there would be enough that my root system, the fabric that contains me, would replenish me so that I would be okay and safe. We don't know a lot about that right now in human history.
We don't, do we?
We don't, but it is. One of the things it makes me think of is, because I use it as a reference point myself, is this field of biomimicry, which is the study of nature and nature's intelligence. And the truth is, nature is 3.8 billion years old. Like, nature is where the intelligence is. Nature is our master in evolution and design, and knows how to create zero waste, the most sustainable systems, on our planet. And in nature's design, there is enough for everyone, and there's an intelligence operating that contains us, holds us.
And that intelligence lives inside of us.
Yeah.
And that intelligence creates circumstance, like we were talking about the last video. And that intelligence is who we are. And the wisdom of that intelligence has created the universe. I put some cool things down. I thought, maybe I'll be able to use this, right? So the Earth travels 600 million miles around the sun every year, while it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour and traveling around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour. We've got that. In terms of the human brain, we've got 80 billion neurons in the brain. Neuron is a brain cell. Each neuron has 10,000 connections. We live in this extraordinary ocean of intelligence, of wisdom, of sacred holiness. We don't notice. I use these terms because sometimes it wakes us up. We are in a vast, extraordinary universe that is really, as you get more still, you realize this, here for us. So the security that you were talking about, at the base of who we are, we're absolutely secure.
Yeah.
At the surface of who we are, we're absolutely insecure. So it behooves us to go from the busy thinking mind, they call it in India the ocean. The ocean has all these waves on top, you can hardly deal with it. And if you go to the bottom, it's completely still.
Yeah, yes, please. I mean, I think this feels like an invitation, to
Good.
just a really, I feel like the most useful, constructive thing is because of the way we're conditioned, we're always sourcing for the evidence of what we believe to be true. Because going back to all the other episodes, that's what keeps our ego feeling safe. So
Yes.
we've created a version of reality
perfect.
where we have to struggle for limited resources. It's me against you, zero-sum game. That's a certain storyline that's really gotten going, and we can see the storyline playing out in terms of the global warming and the imminent, demise of our planet. That kind of storyline, that thinking, created that reality. And the invitation is to imagine that there's a different story that's possible, and then to get curious about it, because where we place our attention is what we grow. So, I don't know why I'm inclined to say, what's the practical application of, if you want to feel more connected, you want to feel more alive, you want to feel that you're not alone, what do you do?
Do we reach out?
Yeah.
reach out to
For
people.
me, it's
Yes.
generosity.
You've always talked about love,
I do.
giving love to
Right.
strangers, to everyone.
Can we
to connecting.
repeat that statement from the near-death experience video?
Yeah.
So somebody who died for quite a while and was revived and came back, he said, I have only one thing to say. What you take to heaven, the only thing you can take to heaven, is the love that you give out on earth.
It's a great way to sum up.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So you can find information on how to connect and contact Steve at the end of this video. Thank you for watching episode 15 of Secrets of the Universe, Walking the Conscious Path with Steve Hasenberg. I'm Greg Agnew.